Hey there, I'm Carrie Wolf Park, your parent coach. I'm a mother of 6 and I fostered 10 children. This podcast is a space for caregivers of kids with trauma to come out of isolation and get the support they deserve, moving from surviving to thriving. We will discuss how to shift your mindset, better manage trauma triggers, and other eye-opening issues. Through my work and lived experience, I know it is possible to manifest harmony amongst what seems like chaos, and I'm committed to showing you how to do the same. I look forward to connecting with you. Today, we're going to dive right into the uncomfortable topic of violence in the home. I'm not talking about abusive parents here. We know there are a lot of necessary conversations and resources on that subject. I'm talking about kids who are violent as a result of trauma, whether it's known or unknown. This is such a tough topic. On the surface, some people look at the child's behavior and want to give them a severe consequence for it, expecting they will think twice before doing that again, as I can hear in my father's tone. But that's not usually how it works. The child and the situation are far more complex, layered with issues that we need to peel back. You know, a lot of times when the child is calm, she may not even remember what she did that was violent or erratic. In these cases, we say she was inner trauma, which means her body was functioning as though it was in the moment of the trauma that occurred at some earlier date. So, for today in this podcast, my 2 intentions are, 1, to speak the truth. This stuff really happens, and the more it gets exposed, the more likely we can stomp it out. And I want to be really clear here. If this is your life, it doesn't mean that your kids or you are bad in any way. I know that the sweetest, kindest, cuddliest child in the morning may end the day throwing rocks at his mother's head. I am certain it's just as awful for the child as it is the person taking the brunt of the violence. My other intention is to help you create a safety plan for your family. There is a lot to talk about here, which I obviously won't be able to cover in this one podcast. In upcoming segments, we will go into issues such as how we talk about trauma, diagnoses, your thoughts about your child, which aren't always pretty, setting and holding boundaries, handling trauma triggers, and other topics like these. If you have a subject you want to be sure we cover, subscribe to this podcast and let me know in the comments below. All right, let's get into it. If a child is violent, the family needs a plan, period. If you're downplaying the severity of the situation or pretending everything's fine and this too shall pass, or your child's outbursts are anomalies happening more than once, then you are fooling yourself. You are also likely exposing yourself, your child, and all the other living things in your house to unnecessary danger. Stop trying to paint a pretty picture around the violent reality and acknowledge what is actually happening. Once you do that, we can move on with creating a safety plan. I know I said that as though it's easy. I totally get none of this is easy. I spend hours with my clients holding space and coaching to support them getting out of their fantasy land and into what's actually going on. It's about removing the judgment, the good and the bad judgment. I help them get to a place of acceptance, accepting both where they are at and what is literally happening. I know one woman who was just in it. Literally, she was in the thick of the situation, which included violence. And I say it this way because she didn't realize how bad it was. She stayed in the moment and simply dealt with whatever was thrown at her,
metaphorically and literally. At one point, I asked her if she thought she's living in chaos. She was surprised and disagreed. This was simply her life. She got up each morning, did what was needed, and went to bed at night, going through the motions to get through each moment. During our coaching, she pivoted and viewed her day through a wider lens, and she realized it really was chaotic. She was walking on eggshells with the violent kid. She was attempting to be present with her older child, but really wasn't. She was being beat up daily by her child, and she was doing no self-care whatsoever. She quickly realized that was no way to live. I'm sure a lot of parents of kids with trauma resonate with this sweet woman. Once you are at a place of acceptance, even if you just catch a glimpse of acceptance, you might be able to create a plan. So, let's talk about what that might look like. The fewer lives involved, the simpler. And, of course, the more people in the home, the more complex a plan you may need. The key is that everybody comes out intact and unharmed. That includes you, the caregiver, as well as the child in her trauma, and of course, all other adults, children, and pets. One mother I worked with had tunnel vision, meaning she kept seeing her child's outbursts as situational. She would say things like, "They only happen around screen time. Video games are the real problem." But I kept probing, and then she added thoughts like, "Oh, last week he acted out when I didn't let him have more candy. And I guess earlier he also had an episode when I wouldn't let him back in the kitchen for more food after I had tucked him in bed." This kept going until I pointed out it sounded like he acts out violently each time a boundary is set. If he couldn't have full control over his actions, he used violence. She agreed. You can see that if I had run with her first statement, we might still be talking about video games and the data she had found for why they are dangerous to children. Video games themselves weren't the problem. The root was his inability to respect a boundary. More on this topic in a future episode. And as parents, we have boundaries all over the place. So his violence was rampant and likely to happen at any time of day. This was a serious problem she could no longer see narrowly with her tunnel vision and place blame outside, in this case, on the video games. She came to accept what was happening, accept her son for where he was at in the moment, and accept that she was doing her best and is learning new skills. That was the point we could move forward. Acceptance is your first step. And you may need someone to really see you before you can see yourself. A coach or capable close friend or family member, perhaps. The preventive part of the plan is to prep your house or car. Comb through your spaces and remove anything the child used in the past when violent, or could pick up and use to hurt anyone next time. In your car, look out for water bottles, especially the metal ones, by the way. Pencils, books, hard plastic toys. Inside your home, you may have to dismantle your entire common space, which means picture frames, vases, knickknacks, and of course the kitchen knives all go away. If you're storing these items in your bedroom or a closet, you may consider changing out the doorknob for a key lock so you have better control over the space. Okay, so just as schools and businesses have plans for emergencies, families need them too. Creating a plan for when a child gets violent is no different than having one in case of a fire. It's an emergency in your home. Think through the ideal situation of who should be where during the violence. For instance, if there are other children, should they immediately go to their own rooms, or is it better for them to be together in one of their rooms? If you have pets, are they in danger during these times? Think about how they can be kept safe. Maybe another child lets the dog out back or brings the cat into their room, for instance. If there is another adult in the house, fantastic. Divide and conquer. Think also about the physical environment the child is in. Most kids typically feel calmer when the lights are dim and sounds are minimized. This is part of the plan. Who will turn off all the unnecessary lights and ensure TVs and other devices are not playing? In the same vein, if your child responds well to something specific, like a scent or a particular song, include that in your plan and always have, say, lavender oil available on the kitchen counter. Look around in your space. What else will be important to minimize or accentuate? Practicing the plan is important, especially if it's complex. We all know a run-through will better prepare us for the real thing when we are stressed. We also know it may not go as planned, but practicing will help you identify where something is likely to go awry. I will fully acknowledge here that this may be tricky. Let's say your family has mom, dad, son, and daughter. Your son has violent outbursts, and you just completed your family plan to keep everyone safe. You know your children best. If you have the family run through the plan, will your son understand why this is important and be all right with it? Or will he sink into self-loathing, and would it add to his poor self-esteem? If you, your spouse, and daughter practice privately, will your daughter be able to keep it quiet from her brother so he doesn't feel bad? These may seem like nuances, but they are important. You don't want to add any negativity to your son's experience. There may be times when a run-through is not necessary. Instead, you inform your daughter, in this case, what she is to do if her brother becomes violent again. Hey, I'm taking a moment here to thank you for listening to our podcast, Parenting Kids with Trauma. Be listening for actions you can take this week as a way to move your life forward. Also, I invite you to book a free consultation with me on our website, KarriWolfPark.com. That's KarriWolffPark.com. Please also subscribe and write a review. And we would love to hear your story. I want you to be heard. It's empowering. And we want to amplify these stories anonymously to others so more and more families know they are not alone. You can share your story on our website either by voice or text. Now let's get back to it. Let's talk now about an even trickier situation. It may be necessary to engage physically with the violent child if she is hurting you or anyone else in the home. A lot of kids in trauma respond very poorly when physically manipulated, meaning picked up and put somewhere safe. And still, it might be what needs to be done. If so, it's extremely vital that everyone stay in control. In fact, that's so important, I'm just going to repeat that, okay? Y'all must stay in control of your emotions and bodies. If a spouse or older sibling is pulling the child off you, for instance, that person needs to be fully in control, not acting out of anger or rage or being vengeful. What we don't want to see or hear is gritted teeth, yelling, threats or degrading comments to the child, and things like that. It may be helpful to calmly name what you are going to do, like, I'm going to separate you from mommy so you both stay safe. And I say may be helpful because a lot of times the child in her trauma isn't really in her body, so the words might literally not be heard. And it's good practice. Plus, it could help the rest of you stay calm. Most dire is the need to bring in outside support. I've seen success when a parent got their sister on FaceTime in the midst of the incident. The violent child had a good relationship with her and was able to snap into an improved mental state just enough so the parent could access the child and help her out of her trauma. Perhaps you have a family or very close friends nearby who could be called in to help alter the energy. Truly last resort is 911. There are a lot of good reasons people don't want to bring the police into their home, especially when children are involved, which is why I say this is a last resort. You may use this option if you literally believe serious harm or death is imminent to someone in the house. I know race is a factor here too. Let's not pretend it's not. State clearly to the dispatcher all who is in the home, ages, genders, and races, and describe exactly what is going on. You don't want anyone mistaken for the wrong person, nor do you want to catch the officer off guard in any way. Give as much information as needed. I know one family who called their local police station ahead of time using the non-emergency number and inquired how this could go and asked them outright what information they should have ready to give and what they could expect when the officers arrive. This is a great idea for anyone who thinks they may need to contact 911. The adults in the house both knew what to expect if they needed to make that 911 call.
Unfortunately, they did need to make that call, and it happened at a time when only one adult was in the house. She was able to get the sibling in his own room and to stay there, and the mother was clear with the officer that another child was in the house and pointed out his bedroom. The violent child ceased his actions and hid when the officer got to the door. The officer called for backup, which is routine for domestic violence calls, and when the other officer arrived, he spoke with the parent while the first officer coaxed the child out from hiding. Both officers spoke kindly to the child and encouraged him to follow his mom's instructions. Because the child was young, no charges were pressed. The police presence jolted the child out of his violent state and exposed the child and his behaviors to strangers when they had been hidden from anyone outside his nuclear family up to that point. This was a game changer for the child. Exposed. Again, it's a delicate balancing act, and often we don't know how it will work out until we are through it. Police were a trauma trigger for this boy, so he was fearful when they arrived. It seems moving forward, he utilized more of his tools earlier on, so he avoided getting to the point of severe violence again. This child had logged many hours with therapists and psychiatrists and had learned a lot. He simply wasn't choosing to use it until everything escalated to the 911 call. In speaking with that parent after the incident, I know she would not have made the call any earlier. The information she got from the non-emergency number was what gave her the confidence that 911 was a viable option. Until then, she and the family simply endured the daily violence in silence. Sadly, so many people endure violence in silence. I want to highlight for a moment how distressing it is for other people to watch a violent incident. Another child could easily grow resentful of her sibling for hurting their mom. In the ideal plan, all other children and pets are in another room separate from the violence. Okay, let's recap. First, get yourself to a place of acceptance of your situation. Remember, acceptance is without judgment. It just is. Do your preventive work by removing anything which could be dangerous or tempting. Where will the other people in the home be? And how will they get there? What about the pets? Who is altering the environment and how? And remember to stay calm. I trust you now understand the severity of the situation and how important it is to have this plan in place. In the next episode, I will talk about trauma in broad terms. I will also cover how we talk about our kids with trauma to others, as well as how we talk with our kids about what happened after a child is triggered. Our words are really important. I'll help you be intentional in how you use yours so you and your family are as successful as possible. If this podcast resonated with you, I invite you to share it with a friend. Tell us what you got from it in the comments. And of course, subscribe to our channel. Also, we really want to hear your story. Reach out on our website and share either in voice or text. We want you to feel heard, and we want to share anonymously with others what happens elsewhere, so everyone knows that no one is alone in this. I look forward to connecting with you next time.